Today's video I have titled, Does Mark Serve God? And it follows the theme of past videos with this title in the verse from Malachi, so you will again distinguish between the righteous and the wicked, between one who serves God and one who does not serve God. So today's video, examining Mark Brashear, does Mark serve God? Well, hindsight, there are some good things that I've experienced from Mark, and I've talked about them in past videos. I've talked about ways in which he lacks conformity to one who serves God. But so in the past, he did give good counsel at times to me. One of them was when I received a job offer for Duke Energy and distribution. This was when I was living in Melbourne, and I was trying to find a job in Orlando so that I could live close to the church. And I got the job offer from Duke Energy in distribution power quality, and I was asking Mark if he thought I should take the job. And at this point, like, it was already like a given. I was already going to take the job. But I did want to hear his counsel. And he said that his only concern would be about the job in and of itself, the work that I would be doing, and if it's work that's beneficial to my degree and my career, and if it would help grow me, and if it's in line with like my engineering degree and what it is I want to do for work. So I thought that was good counsel. And from like a man to a woman, you don't really see that often. I think the norm is, for women at least, is kind of like get a job as like a teacher or a nurse, but it's just kind of part-time until you get married, because you know your full-time career will be as a wife and a homemaker and a mother. So, you know, getting a college degree, it's kind of, if you don't have the money to pay for it out of pocket, you're just, you know, obtaining debt for yourself for a degree, where it's like your ultimate goal is to be married and stay at home and be a wife and mother. So for Mark to give me that counsel regarding the job offer from Duke Energy, I thought that was good counsel. And then there was a time when I was maybe like 3 years into that job, and I was looking back and I was like, you know what? Mark had good counsel. I probably should have considered the actual position that I was being hired to do, because it was more electrical. It had to do with fault currents, and my degree is in mechanical engineering, so it wasn't a good fit for me. And then like 3 years into that job, I was kind of at a point where it was like, I want to do more mechanical stuff, but my experience is kind of limited. I only had the experience from Rockwell Collins, and then I have, you know, years of experience in distribution power quality, and that's not really relevant to mechanical engineering. So looking back, I was like, you know what, Mark, you were right. I probably should have examined the position more and been more considerate with accepting it at that time. So I thought that was really good counsel that he gave me. Also, he gave me counsel regarding insurance when I was in a car accident. I was in a car accident, and the fault was the other person. This was back in like 2016, and the police report said that I had, I think it had it written down that I had like broken an arm or something like that, but it was just like severely bruised. And then they were wanting to do like a payout without kind of like assessing the medical damages. And I was talking to Karen about it, and Karen was like, well, you should talk to Mark about it. He used to work at State Farm. He knows insurance. He'll give you, he'll be able to counsel you on what you should do and kind of help navigate, you know, the situation. And at that time, I was like, I was opportunistic about that situation where I was in a car accident and the fault was the other person. I was like, I'm going to get my bag. I have this insurance claim. I'm going to get my payout. How much can I get from insurance, Mark? But I called him, and I was asking him, you know, how should I respond to this insurance? They want to pay me out this money. Should I take it? And you responded, you were saying that, like, you were counseling me, and you were saying, like, speaking of myself, you're not trying to take more, you're not trying to be greedy. You're not trying to profit off of this. You just want to make sure that you're covered. And at that time, I was like, no, Mark, I'm trying to get my bag. But that counsel renewed my mind. I was like, okay, you're right. I don't want to be opportunistic. I don't want to be greedy with this situation and take advantage of insurance. I just want to make sure that I'm covered. So I thought that was good counsel. It renewed my mind, and that's how I responded. So when I called the people back at the insurance, and they were going over the claim, they're like, we have it listed here that you have a broken arm. And I was like, no, I don't really have a broken arm. It was just bruising. And they're like, oh, well, if that's the case, we can give you a check for $2,000. And I was like, I wonder how much they would have given me if I didn't say that. But any sense, that was good counsel that I received from Mark in regards to dealing with insurance when I was in a car accident. And there were multiple times that Mark advised me to hold on to my money rather than give it to CBC. Cornerstone. So I talked about that in past videos where I had extra money and I was like, Mark, is there anyone in need? I have this extra money. And he was like, no, we're good. Hold on to your money. So it's not like he's, taking everything, he can get. Yeah. He advised me to hold on to my money rather than give it to CBC. So those are, looking back, good things from Mark, that I've seen, that are in accord with, Christian character, I think. Also, there's this concept where if you're good or if you have goodness in you, you can perceive good. If you're void of good, well, you can't discern what good is. You have to possess some form of good in order to recognize good in something else. So, like with God and creation, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good. So it's like God is good. So when God created light, well, he can perceive that light is good. Light came forth from God, and God is able to recognize, like, oh, this is light. This is good. If light is good, well, I'm good. Because evil people, like, woe to those who, substitute bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter, evil for good and good for evil. If you can't discern what good is, that means you're evil. Like, evil people will look at good and say that it's evil. So this concept, like, you have to possess some form of good in order to perceive good. So there's that example with God. And then also the Proverbs 31 woman. Verse 18, she perceived that her merchandise was good, was profitable. She's able to sense that. She senses that her gain is good. And you have to possess good in order to recognize it in another substance outside of yourself. Yeah. So with Mark, Mark can perceive good. There have been times where he's received good, he sensed good, he perceived it, and he received it in and of himself. I remember my first Christmas after being saved, I was in awe over the incarnation. And I had a brief conversation with Mark about it. And the Christmas sermon that year used the same text. So we were singing these hymns. This is Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Mild he lays his glory by, born that man no more may die, born to raise the sons of earth, born to give them second birth. And at the time, I was meditating on a text in Romans where it says that God condemned sin in the flesh that the righteous requirement might be fulfilled. So I was talking to Mark about the incarnation. It was my first Christmas, so like meditating on the incarnation through new lenses, I was in awe of it, and I was talking to Mark about it, and it's like you see the beauty of the incarnation and the righteousness of the incarnation and the goodness of God in the incarnation from that text. And then Mark, his Christmas sermon was from that text, so it's like he multiplied it from that one conversation. we had a conversation. I was meditating on these things, and he took that seed and he multiplied it. So it's like he was able to perceive good, and he received it, and he multiplied it and preached a Christmas sermon on it. So, yeah. Also, when I was designing the arc of my civil ceremony, the theme, the arc, the beginning, the end of my civil ceremony, I sent Mark and Michael suggestive bullet points that they might find helpful for their sermons while also fitting the theme. So I had a theme of, it was temple themed. So like I had these hymns in the beginning. It was God, all nature sings thy glory. And at the end, one of the hymns was the sands of time are sinking. So it talks about like the Genesis temple, the eschatological temple. And then when I was like thinking of that theme, I thought through different things that one might want to say in a marriage sermon during that time. So I emailed Mark and Michael, and when I did it, I'm like, they're gonna think this is so dumb. They're gonna think I'm so stupid. I'm giving them a sermon outline. They're gonna think this is the most ridiculous thing ever that I'm because there's big on women not teaching. I was like, this is probably crossing some boundary. I'm gonna get a response from this. I'm going to hear about it somehow. But I didn't get any backlash from it. And Michael didn't talk on any of the points that I sent him. But Mark did. He included some of my points. So that's good. I thought that was good. Not to Michael's benefit, but to the benefit of Mark. He was willing to receive some of the points that I had emailed him. He probably affirmed that they were good, and at least good enough for him to speak them also. So again, good, you have to possess good in order to perceive good. So these are examples where Mark affirmed that things that I spoke were good, and that he was also willing to receive them, affirm them, and speak them to others. So and goodness is of God. So if Mark possesses goodness in any measure, well, that goodness is of God. Yep. Also, Mark has ice cream truck. I don't know if you guys can hear it. So with other things in creation, like Mark is particular about what food he eats. He also has like good taste in music. He's cultured. He's been to Paris. He kind of has a broad understanding of like art and theater and performance. So Mark can perceive good, and he enjoys good. And enjoying creation, that's a form of worship. So yeah, he can recognize good from the word, and he can recognize good from creation and enjoy it. And that enjoyment of God's goodness is a form of worship. So that's one way that Mark serves God, is just by enjoying the good things of creation. The sacrifices to God are the fruit of our lips, giving thanks and praise to his name. So enjoying creation is one way that you serve God. I think Mark does that in music, in culture, in food, in good theology. Yeah, so I think those are ways in which Mark serves God. Also, I made us, I came up with a club for us, Mark, and I designed these membership cards, and I have the sublimation, I have them printed out on sublimation paper at my house. And I also have like the card sublimination blanks. I just need to press them. But seeing your response to some gifts, I kind of took a pause, and I'll kind of wait and then give you some other gifts. But I came up with this club for us. It's, Mark and Rebecca's Good Things Club. And then I have pictures of like piano, music, clothing, good clothing. That's like, I don't think it's worldliness to be materialistic. Like the good, there are good things that can come forth from creation, and I don't think it's wrong to delight in good quality clothing and good food and good music. Jesus's tunic was seamless. I don't know how they did that. I don't know how it was woven. But to have a seamless tunic, well, that sounds expensive, and that sounds premium, and that sounds high quality. So, having a taste for the finer things, I don't think that's like a sin in and of itself to be like materialistic, where it's like you value good materials. I think it's honoring to God where you have a preference for good materials. If you can afford them, I guess. And as someone who crafts and create things, it's like you see the importance of good materials and good machines. It's like in the Tower of Babel when it says like they were using like brick instead of stone and something else instead of mortar. It gives the idea that like they were using the wrong materials for what they were constructing. So having a delight in good materials for what you're creating, clothing, food, I think that's another way that one can worship God. Again, like the Proverbs 31 woman, she's like the merchant ships. She gets her ingredients from afar. It's like she knows the good stuff to make whatever. Yep, so I came up with this club, the Good Things Club. And then I put open to upright women only. So like I was going to say upright men and women only, but I didn't want it to be like upright men and then women. I wanted to make sure like the upright, that adjective was applicable to both the men and the women. So that's why I wrote it like that. And then I put unreasonable beasts and uncultured swine, not allowed. And this was after I wrote Tim and his wife an encouragement, and I got that response from him where he like trampled it underfoot and turned and tore me to pieces. So it's like, at least Mark liked my stuff. So that's why I started making you more paintings, because you liked my tulip painting. And I was like, well, this guy, Tim, doesn't know what good is. If this is his response when I give him a good encouragement, he tramples it underfoot and turns and tears me to pieces, well, those are the works of swine. So it put Mark in a new light. I was like, well, Mark never did that. He enjoyed all my stuff. So yeah, I came up with this Good Things Club. Open to upright men and women only. And then on the back, I have that hymn, music, art, the fruitful garden, all the labor of his days are the calling of his maker to the harvest feast of praise. So I have those membership cards. I came up with a club. If you want to pursue that club, I can make the membership cards. I think I came up with 10. So that's like number one. We can have our club. And it's giving like the Finer Things Club from The Office. Yeah, I think that's a form of worship, enjoying creation, enjoying the works of others. This is what sets man apart from beasts, so enjoying these things, the works of man, ruling over creation in different ways, I think that's a form of worship. I think a lot of people I think fear of death is the root of a lot of sins, that when people have a manifestation of sins in different ways, I think fear of death is a root cause of it. Here Hebrews 2, verses 14 through 15. It's like through fear of death, we're subject to slavery. I think that's like a big, one of the biggest problems with maybe issues that pastors may or may not have, where, if they get their money with this work, I think if they have a fear of death about certain things, I think that fear of death can cause them to try to be controlling. And like in the Bible where it talks about the Pharisees, how they had a love of money. Well, it's like, is it a love of money or is it like a fear of death? But I guess it's kind of both. Like if you love money, well, you worship money, you're not trusting in God. You love God rather than money. But it might not be like a desire to be rich. It just might be like a trust in money instead of trusting in God. And then it's like knowing like your livelihood is dependent on your congregation and their support. Well, I think pastors might do and say things that if they weren't bound to that, their conduct might be different. If they weren't dependent on certain people for their livelihood, I think maybe their conduct would be different in certain ways. Just my thoughts when I try to consider pastors and the way in which some of them sin. I think ultimately the root of it is like a fear of death. I don't think it's a good system for pastors to get their livelihood from their congregations, because then it puts them in a position where it's like maybe they're going through a dry season and they're not really fruitful in word or in deed. And then it's like, are they qualified? Well, if they're not qualified, I'm not going to give them money. And then it just a downward spiral, I don't think it's a good system. So there's that. One of the things that I think when I ask myself, like, does this person serve God? It's like I have to ask, like, does this person feel at all? Do they have empathy and compassion and care in a small form? Or are they just like emotionally numb on the inside and void of all feelings? So one thing that I ask myself, like, does someone serve God? I try to examine, like, do they have feelings? Do they have genuine emotions? Or is it all performative? And I was in a conversation with Brianna one time, and she reminded me that Marc cried in Avengers Endgame when Iron Man died. So that was like a light of hope for me. I was like, you know what? Maybe he does feel, maybe he does have genuine emotions. Maybe he's just in a weird spot. Maybe he is making himself be unfeeling in certain ways. Not understanding the effect that his words and his actions have on others. But it gave me hope when Brianna reminded me about the time we went and saw Avengers Endgame, and she was saying that she sat next to you when it was over. It's raining. She looked over and she's like, Marc was crying when Iron Man died. So it gives me hope that Marc serves God, or that he can turn and start serving God if he's not now. But to answer the question, does Marc serve God? I don't know. The judge of all the earth will do right. It's above my pay grade. Man looks at outward appearance. God looks at the heart. I can't see all of Marc's heart, just some. Can only observe fruit that can kind of give indication of what's in the heart. But if he doesn't serve God, I mean, he can start. One time I thought I was one of the bad guys in the Bible, and then I was like examining myself, like, is this me? It was like the Jezebel in Revelation that calls herself a prophetess. And I was like, you know what, is that me? Because I can kind of anticipate that that accusation is going to be said against me. And I'm like, is that me? But if it was, I wouldn't know. If it was me, I wouldn't know. I think when you're the bad guy, it's like, ultimately it's Satan. Satan's the bad guy, and he has, he's able to gain leverage through people. And it's like when Like both the oppressor and the oppressed, like the oppressed are in a ditch, and the oppressor, it's like an inverted ditch. It's not a better situation where you're delighting in things like control, power, trusting in your own power, your ability, yourself, your strength. It's like you're believing the lies of Satan that these things will bring you joy. You're seeking satisfaction over power, control, money, influence, notoriety, and it's like it's a cage. It's like a deception from Satan. Yeah, if you're the bad guy, you wouldn't know. But I always thought, like, if I ever became aware that I was the bad guy, well, I would just turn and start doing good. And I think there were times where maybe I spoke evil of someone, or I spoke a reviling accusation against them. And when I recognize that, it's like, well, I want to turn. I want to do good. I don't want to bear any semblance of the works of Satan. I don't want to declare anyone to be guilty. I can call out their conduct that is against the will of God, and hopefully they'll turn, but I don't want to declare anyone to be anything evil. So if anyone ever realizes that they're the bad guy, we'll just turn and start doing good. Like Mark, does Mark serve God? Well, it's up to Mark. Does Mark want to serve God? I think that's a choice we have to make every day. We have to pick up our cross daily and follow after the Lord. His mercies are new every morning. So does Mark serve God? I don't know. I hope so. A lot of these pastors have a lot of problems. Pick your poison. Yeah. But I try to think of the example of how Jesus conducted himself, how God works in Jesus, how a dimly burning wick he will not extinguish. So if there is a small flame in Mark where he wants to serve God, I want to encourage that and encourage him to do good. Choose this day. Who are you going to serve? You have to cease from speaking evil, cease from letting your lips speak deceit. Turn away from evil and do good. So, does Mark serve God? Well, Mark has to decide if he wants to serve God, and to start doing good and speaking good and putting off evil speech and evil works. So, the ball's in his court to answer that question on does Mark serve God? Okay, thanks.